Hi and welcome back to Product Review Cars. My name's Cameron and I've got the 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe Highlander. This one's priced from just over $66,000 drive away, and my argument is this is the best value family car you can buy today. Now this is the sister car to the Kia Sorento, so I mean if you're shopping between the two, I'll let you decide which one you prefer, but to be honest, I'm liking this Hyundai quite a lot. So the Santa Fe is a bit like the ugly duckling of the SUV world. It started life a little bit down the dumps. It didn't really look all that too good. And look, that was Hyundai of past. Now we're in 2021 and the Santa Fe has really had its glow up. Now it is a fantastic SUV and it's one of the best in the market in my opinion. And that's because of the amount of features that you're getting. On the outside, the styling does go a fair way when you spend around $66,000. I mean, you don't have to spend that much, but when you're spending on the Highlander, you do get the LED lights up front. You also get the nice upgraded wheels, and then just the overall look of this car does look a little bit better with the top trim, and that's really just thanks to these wheels. So I'm really liking the look of the car on the outside. It's looking sleek, it's looking modern, and it's looking a little bit more sophisticated. I really do like driving around with this. I think it does look good, and it is a car that you can look back on. But on the outside, that's where things sort of finish. It is a bit unassuming on the outside. On the inside is where you're gonna find absolutely everything. And when I first stepped in here, what really stood out to me was the dual tone interior. I'm loving the tan with the black. It looks really nice in here. It's got a nice stitch to it, and this is what you're getting on the top trim. It feels really comfortable sitting in these seats, and I've spent lots of seat time in these Hyundai and Kia seats, and they're fantastic. So one of those things that would go really well on a long trip. The overall fit and finish is really nice. It's solid. Yes, there are some scratchy plastics on the bottom of things, but when you're in the Highlander, you get that Nappa leather, and it does feel nice and soft to touch. So I really do like the overall interior feel up front. Now the steering wheel is pretty generic. It hasn't got anything too special on it, and it does have these plastic paddles on the back, which I'm not really a huge fan of, but I mean, at least they're there if you want to use them. And then what I have in front of me is Hyundai's digital driver's display, which is really kind of cool. I do like it quite a lot. I've been in cars more expensive that don't even get full driver's displays like this one. I do like how clear it is. It's really easy to read, and when you go through different drive modes, the whole gauge cluster changes into an animation between eco, sport, and comfort. So that's really cool. And then it's just really easy to get all your information from the screen at a glance. So I do like just that full digital driver's display, and it's one of those things that just looks quite upmarket in this cabin. Now over on the left, which is a bit more stuck on the dashboard, there is Kia and Hyundai's famous 10.25-inch touch display. And using this, it's really nice. I mean, some people don't like interacting with this, I've heard, and there's some big reviewers that have said they don't love it, but look, I'm a fan. I think it's one of those things that feels like an Android tablet slapped onto the dashboard, and you don't have to learn any crazy new user interfaces or learn how to customize things. Really, it's just like using a tablet because you have all your features in like an app layout. So it's really easy to swipe between the two. It's natural to use, and look, it's just really easy to use while you're on the go too. There's a couple of features in here that make this quite usable for a family car like this, and the main one is passenger talk. So if you were to jump onto passenger talk, your voice gets projected from the front through the cabin, so you don't have to yell as much as you normally would if your rugrats in the back are being an absolute pain. So I like that feature quite a lot, and I've seen it in a couple of cars in Kia and Hyundai's range, and I tell you what, I think I'd be saving my voice and not being hoarse at the end of the day if I had to yell at people all the way in the third row. And of course on the screen you can see Harman Kardon. This car has the upgraded Harman Kardon audio system, and it's just so much nicer than the stock system. It just gives you a bit more depth, a bit more clarity, and of course it sounds a lot more powerful as well. So I do like the Harman Kardon system, and it really feels like you're stepping into something upmarket when you see Harman Kardon stamped absolutely everywhere. And then below the screen, we have a swath of physical buttons. And in an age where everything's going capacitive touch, this is a welcomed cabin feature. It just means that if you're wearing gloves or don't want to have fingerprints all over capacitive buttons, at least you have a bunch of physical buttons here, and they're really easy to navigate because it's all very simple in its layout. Now in this model, we do get heated and cooled front seats, and we also get a heated steering wheel, which is really nice, and especially on a cold winter's day like today. Now there's plenty of places to store items. There's a big cup holder area and a place for wireless charging too, which is just below here. And this is one of the weirdest wireless phone chargers I've seen, because you don't put your phone down flat like you normally would in some other cars. What you have is like a vertical slot. So it fits my iPhone 11 just fine, but as phones get bigger, it might get a little bit tight for some, especially if they have a case, anything bigger than say like an iPhone 11 or a 12. So that is just something to note with that vertical slot, but it just means that when you're driving around, your phone is going to be constantly charging without sliding around making a racket either. So I do like that a little bit if your phone fits. And another thing are the autonomous driving features for the cruise control features. So if you're just driving around, for example, you can put steering assist and lane keep assist on. So it means the car will read what's happening out on the road, read the lines, and it's so good because the car will just steer in the lane for you, and it's far more active than some other systems. And look, the dynamics of the car is pretty good. You get, the thing with this car and the diesel motor is the torque. 440 Newton meters is no slouch, and it's really nice to see that you get plenty of mid-range pull, and you also get plenty of power when you need it. It's not a fast car by any means, but it's not underpowered, and it's really nice and effortless just to squeeze the throttle and get that power out of it. And that's what sport mode is really for, is that just gives you all that responsiveness when you need it. Now we do have eco mode, which one of those things, eco mode, I never get. Sure, this car can be a little bit thirsty with fuel sometimes, and if you're really concerned about that, I guess that's really good, but I think it's just there to appease sort of regulations. It's really not a mode that I ever find myself ever wanting to use in any car by any means. What I do appreciate is the comfort mode, which is quite nice in the Santa Fe, and that just means that the whole car just relaxes and it gives you a far more chill driving experience, and your gauge cluster's all chilled out. There's no red racing colors or anything like that. So look, the drive modes are really useful. And now, as much as I'd love to show you the terrain modes and them working, you're gonna have to watch my Kia Sorento review to see how they go, because unfortunately we're in the midst of a bit of a lockdown, so I can't head out to my regular off-road sections, and that just means we have to look at the drive modes, but we can't really test them out. And I think the best argument this car makes is with its second row. Now, very similar to the Kia Sorento, it's got so much space in there. The seats can roll all the way forwards, all the way back, and they can lean up and down at quite aggressive angles, and they are so comfortable. As much as I love driving this car in terms of how comfortable it is and all the features I have access to up here, in the back I get rear heated seats, I get a rear blind, and if I'm in the rear left passenger seat and no one's in the front passenger seat, I can use these controls on the left passenger seat and push it all the way forwards to give me as much room as humanly possible, which just makes this the best passenger experience if you're sitting in the second row for a long journey. I think the Santa Fe and the Sorento offer the best second row experiences for under $100,000. It's just so comfortable. And then add on this panoramic roof, you've got plenty of light coming into the cabin, and if you really do have to carry 7 people, you do have those jump seats in the boot, but they're not really that roomy for adults. They're really just for children or maybe smaller adults that can fit in there and are comfortable being squished in a little bit for a longer journey. And another thing this car does really well is this boot space. It has a ginormous boot for a mid-size SUV. There's plenty of space back there. It's nice and boxy, and there's also a nice flat load floor, so you don't have to worry about any dips. Sure, it's a little bit high to access it, but you know, it's just nice and flat. There's no weird contouring going on, and it's just flat with, and there's a nice carpet that actually covers up the third row if you don't use it that often, which I quite like, and it's just really usable. If I was to use a practical car, I'd be going for one of these or the Sorento, and I'd love one of these as like a camera car, because you know, you'd have comfortable space for up to 5 people for longer trips, and then you could also fit a whole bunch of stuff back here. If I was to go for a trip down to the snow, for example, I could think of no better car to take than the Santa Fe in terms of having absolute comfort and just feeling safe, and also having those features like an all-wheel drive system as well as terrain response modes. This car does it all so well for a reasonable price. And there's one other feature that sort of is a bit quirky, and that's Smart Park. And this car does it and makes it seem like it's driving away on its own, where in matter of fact, what it is, it's a feature on the key, and your key is the remote control to the car. You can remote start the car, and then you can get it to move forwards and backwards at your control, which I think is so cool. And look, I know the Sorento does it as well, but it's just one of those features that you go, almost magic. So look, the reason why you're looking at one of these cars is because your main priority is something that's just going to be a great daily driver, and that's what this does very well. It's just so easy to jump into, and look, I can understand some other brands, you can pay a bit more money, and sure, you might not get as many features, for example, but you might get a better driving experience, a more powerful motor, maybe something that's a bit more luxurious, because sure, this is really luxurious inside, but for some, you might be looking for some, I don't know, upgraded leather, or you want leather everywhere, or Alcantara, or stuff like that. Really, what you'd be buying different from this is if you're chasing a more sporty experience, because that's what this doesn't offer. It's a lounge room. That's what this car does best. Just comfort, and you know, everything is done very nicely. If you want something a bit nicer, I mean, it's really hard to sort of justify spending more on some nicer leather with less features, for example, on the interior. If you don't love the exterior design of this or the Sorento, then sure, I get it. That's a personal preference, and you can't really get past that if you don't like the design. But I think it's at a point where the design is nice and sophisticated, but it's not shouty either. But then also, the thing is, you will get some people who will lift their noses up at the Hyundai brand, which is a bit unfortunate because I think it's a really good brand now. It's come a long way from the original Santa Fe, and it's one of those cars that you definitely should check out. And so with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.